down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot.
But the Grinch who lived just north of Whoville did not.
The Grinch hated Christmas the whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason.
It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right.
It could be perhaps his shoes were on too tight.
But I think the most likely reason of all, maybe perhaps his heart was 2 sizes too small.
But whatever was the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve hating the Who's.
Staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm-lighted windows below in their town, for he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging their mistletoe wreath.
And they're hanging their stockings.
Sneered the Grinch.
Tomorrow is Christmas. It's practically here.
He growled with his Grinch fingers, nervously drumming.
I must find a way to stop Christmas from coming.
For tomorrow, he knew.
Every Who grown boy would wake up bright and early. They'd rush for their toys and then...
Oh, the noise, noise, noise.
That's the one thing he hated.
The noise!
The noise!
Noise.
The Who's down in Whoville would sit down to a feast.
And they'd feast.
And they'd feast.
And they'd feast.
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 They'd feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beef.
Which is something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least.
And then they'd do something he liked least of all.
All the Who's down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together, with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand.
And the Who's would start singing.
They'd sing.
And they'd sing.
And they'd sing.
Sing.
Sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing,
The more the Grinch thought.
I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I've put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how?
Then the Grinch got an idea.
The Grinch got an awful idea.
Then the Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea.
I know just what to do.
The Grinch laughed in his throat. And he made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat.
Then he chuckled and clucked.
What a great Grinchy trick. With this coat and this hat, I look just like St. Nick. All I need is a reindeer.
The Grinch looked around, but since reindeers are scarce, there was none to be found. Did that stop the old Grinch?
No.
The Grinch simply said,
If I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead.
So he called his dog Max. Then he took some red thread and tied a big horn on top of his head.
Then he loaded some bags
And some old empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh.
and hitched up on Max.
Then the Grinch said,
Giddy up!
And the sleigh started down toward the homes where the Who's lay snooze in their town.
All their windows were dark, quiet snow filled the air.
All the Who's were all dreaming, sweet dreams without care.
When he came to the first little house on the square,
This is stop number 1. The old Grinchy Claus hissed.
He climbed up the roof, empty bags in his fist, then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pitch.
but if Santa could do it,
Then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once for a moment or two.
Then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where all the Who's stockings hung in a row.
These stockings
he grinned.
are the first thing to go.
Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant.
Around the whole room he took every present. Pop guns,
Bicycles!
Roller skates,
drums, checkerboards.
tricycles,
Popcorn!
and plums.
And he stuffed them in bags. Then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags, one by one, up the chimney.
Then he slunk to the icebox.
He took the Who's feast!
He took the Who pudding.
He took the roast beast. He cleaned out that icebox as quick as a flash.
Why, that Grinch even took their last can of Who hash.
Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee.
And now,
Grinned the Grinch.
I will stuff up the tree.
And he grabbed the tree and he started to shove.
When he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove,
Cindy Lou Who.
She was no more than 2.
why the Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter who had gotten out of bed for a cold cup of water.
She stared at the Grinch and said,
Santa Claus, why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?
But you know that old Grinch, he was so smart and so slick, he thought up a lie and he thought it up quick.
thought of why he thought it up quick.
Why, my sweet little tot,
The fake Santa Claus lied.
there's a light on this tree that won't light on one side, so I'm taking it back to my workshop. My dear, I'll fix it up here and I'll fix it up there and I'll bring it back here.
And his fib for the child.
And he patted her head and got her a cold cup of water and sent her to bed.
And when Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up.
And the last thing he took was the log from the fire.
He went up himself, the old liar.
On their walls he left nothing but some hooks and some wire.
And the one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse.
Then he did the same to the other 2 houses.
Leaving crumbs much too small for the other whose mouses.
It was 15:15 dawn.
All the who's still abed.
All the who's still a snooze.
When he packed up his sled.
Packed it up with their presents.
The ribbons.
The wrappings.
The tags.
The tinsel.
The trimmings.
The trappings.
3,000 feet up.
Up the side of Mount Crumpet.
He rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it.
Pooh-hoo to the who's.
He was grinchiously humming.
They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They'll wake up. I know just what they'll do. All the who's down at Who will all cry boo-hoo. Now that's a noise
said the Grinch.
that I simply must hear.
So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear, and he did hear a sound rising over the snow.
It started low.
Then it started to grow.
But the sound wasn't sad.
Why, the sound sounded merry.
It couldn't be so.
But it was merry.
Very!
He stared down at Whoville.
The Grinch popped his eyes.
Then he shook.
What he saw was a shocking surprise.
Every Who down in Whoville, was the tall and the small, was singing.
Without any presents at all.
He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came.
Somehow or other, it came just the same.
Then the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow,
Stood puzzling and puzzling.
How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags.
He puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler went sore.
Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before.
Maybe Christmas
he thought.
doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more.
And what happened then?
Well, down in Hugo, they say, the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day.
And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light.
And he brought back the toys and the food for the feast.
And he
He himself, the Grinch, carved the